The stillness of St. Luke's Fellowship Hall was absolute when my stepdaughter finally spoke, her voice ringing out like a strike against a hollow bell. With her chin tilted up and her gaze locked onto mine, she delivered her ultimatum. "The greatest gift for my wedding," Emily said, "would be if you disappeared from our family forever." The room settled into a heavy silence, surrounded by the mundane sights of folding chairs, white tablecloths, and a half-empty tray of sugar cookies. I waited for Karen, my wife, to intervene to laugh it off as a joke or offer a correction. She didn't. Instead, Karen simply nodded. It was a small, ordinary movement, but it felt like the heavy thud of a door closing deep within my chest. 3 weeks later, that same hall would be filled with the sound of raised voices and red faces as they stared at the wreckage of their plans, wondering how it all collapsed so quickly. But in that moment, all I did was inhale and count to 3. I didn't fight. I didn't plead. I looked at Emily, 28 years old, her hair in a severe bun, and her wedding binder clutched to her chest like a shield, and I said, "All right." She blinked, clearly caught off guard by the lack of resistance. To understand how we got there, you have to know who I am. My name is Tom Gallagher. That spring, I was 56, living in Maple Grove, Minnesota. I'd spent 34 years as an electrician, a life defined by early mornings, damp basements, and hands that never stopped buzzing. Even in sleep, my knuckles remained thick and my fingers numb from decades of crimping wire. Karen and I had been married for 12 years. She came with Emily, who was 16 when I entered the picture. Her biological father was long gone, and while I never tried to replace him, I was always there. I was the one for school pickups, flat tires, and driver's ed practice. I taught her to parallel park in my old Ford F-150, my foot hovering over the brake as she hit the curbs. She used to call me Tom, then Dad, then eventually, she stopped calling me anything at all. Our house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac lined with crabapple trees. I had provided the down payment and my name was on the mortgage alongside Karen's. Emily called it the family home, but mostly when it served as a backdrop for her bridal showers and dinners. The wedding had consumed our lives. Emily's voice was a constant presence on speakerphone while Karen paced the kitchen, agreeing to every expensive whim. I paid the bills without a word because I believe that's what you do for the people you love. The meeting at the church was meant to be a simple logistics check. Emily stood at the front, flipping through her binder like a drill sergeant. Then, she cleared her throat and looked at us. "I don't want any awkwardness on my wedding day," she said. Karen shifted in her chair, the movement she made when she refused to take a side. Emily continued, "People might get confused. I mean, you're not really my dad." I nodded. The words didn't hurt as much as she thought. But then she finished it. "It would mean a lot if you just stepped back, completely. The greatest gift would be if you disappeared from our family forever." I looked at Karen, searching for some sign of our 12 years together. She just nodded. The clock on the wall tick, tick, tick was the only sound left. "All right," I said again. That night, I packed a single duffel bag with the essentials. I left the family photos, the furniture I'd repaired, and the shelves I'd built. Karen watched from the doorway, starting to say something but stopping. I left my keys on the counter next to that wedding binder. I spent the first night in my truck behind a Perkins off Highway 94, the smell of bacon grease in the air, nursing a bad cup of coffee. By morning, my phone was blowing up with messages. Emily was angry, asking what I was pulling, and Karen was asking where I'd gone. I didn't answer. I went to work, pulled wire, and did my job. The world hadn't ended. At lunch, I looked at my mortgage app. I looked at the deed and the insurance policies. Disappear, I thought. All right, but disappearing didn't mean vanishing. It meant removing the support and letting them feel the weight of what I'd been carrying. I drove toward a real estate office I'd passed 1,000 times. I wasn't shaking with rage. I just felt hollow. I filled my truck at a gas station, exchanging a silent nod with another man my age in acknowledgement of survival. Karen texted again, saying things had gone far enough, but I locked my phone. Talking was over. By mid-afternoon, I was at the North Star Credit Union. I'd banked there since before I met Karen. Inside, the teller was polite as she pulled up my joint accounts. Nothing had changed in the eyes of the world, and that was the strange part. Life kept moving. I took notes on the checking, savings, and wedding funds. When I left, I sat on a bench and watched the world go by, feeling years older than I had that morning. I spent the night in a beige motel room, staring at the ceiling and remembering the house, the creak of the third step, and the scent of Corinne's shampoo. I thought about teaching Emily to drive. Easy, I'd told her. You've got time. The next day, while Corinne was at work, I used my spare key to enter the house. It felt like trespassing in my own life. I took my toolbox, my father's photo, and my flannel jacket. I left the wedding albums and the matching mugs. The wedding binder was still on the counter. I closed it gently. When Corinne found me later, she accused me of punishing them. "I'm stepping back like you wanted," I told her. She said Emily didn't mean it, but I reminded her that she had nodded in agreement. Her face changed, then she realized something was in motion that she couldn't stop. Emily's voicemails turned from fury to panic. "Do you know how this looks?" she screamed. Corinne pleaded for me to come home. Instead, I met with Dave Miller, a realtor I knew. I told him I wanted a clean, fast sale. He warned me what that meant, and I signed the listing agreement. It felt heavy not because of doubt, but because of finality. The wedding plans tied to that house were about to unravel. Corinne showed up at the motel that night, bright-eyed and desperate. "You're tearing everything down," she said. I told her I was doing it for myself. She said there was no coming back, and I told her she'd already decided that. The for sale sign went up the next morning. My phone exploded. Emily was hysterical, and the wedding venue was confused about who had authority over the property. I let it ring. Disappearing meant removing the nails from the boards and watching the structure sag. Dave sent me a photo of the listing. The lawn looked greener than I remembered. I felt tired. Corinne texted that I was humiliating Emily. I thought about the winter mornings I spent shoveling the drive so Corinne wouldn't slip, and the furnace I'd replaced myself. I thought about Emily's friends laughing in a kitchen they never had to pay for. At the county records office, I confirmed that my name was first on the deed. On the way out, I rested my head on the steering wheel, wondering if I'd gone too far. Then the venue called. They couldn't host the rehearsal dinner at a house being sold without homeowner confirmation and insurance. "I understand," I said. My hands shook with adrenaline. This was real now. I went back to work, climbing ladders and wiring panels on autopilot. Emily texted that I was ruining everything and making it about me. I remembered driving 2 hours through snow to fix her car when she was in college. "You're my hero," she'd said then. I didn't reply. I called my insurance agent, Linda, and pulled another thread loose by changing the policies. Corinne appeared at my truck in the motel parking lot. "You're her father," she said. "I was," I replied, "until I wasn't." An offer came in for the house 2 days later. I accepted it immediately. I pictured Emily's wedding dress hanging on the rod I'd installed myself. Disappearing wasn't about punishment. It was about the realization that love isn't always returned. The sale closed on a Tuesday. The scratch of the pen was the only sound. 12 years of maintenance and payments gone. Corinne called, breathless. The venue canceled. They said they can't move forward. I told her I was sorry, but I was stepping out of the dream. Emily called next, screaming that I was insane and doing this on purpose. "This is consequences," I told her. Corinne came to the motel, admitting Emily was embarrassed. I reminded her that they had stopped wanting me to exist. 2 days later, an open house was held. Emily showed up and caused a scene on the front steps. My neighbor Rick texted me, saying it didn't feel right with me not being around. A neighbor noticed my absence before my family did. The wedding was postponed. Emily posted about toxic people, and Corinne went silent. I moved into a small rental on the edge of town. The quiet felt earned. But I wasn't just leaving chaos. I was leaving the truth. Before the new owners took possession, I went back one last time. I left a black binder on the counter. It was meticulously labeled mortgage, utilities, medical, wedding expenses. It contained every check and statement from the last 12 years. On top was a letter to Emily. "This is what disappears when I do. There is no anger here, just accounting. Mark, Emily's fiancé, called me after finding it." I heard Corinne crying in the background. Emily tried to call it manipulative, but I told her it was documentation. Mark asked Emily if she knew about all the money I'd spent: the braces, the rent, the deposits. Her silence was the answer. The neighborhood finally knew the truth. Tom had paid for everything. Rick and the others watched as the family dynamic imploded. Mark emailed me later, saying he didn't know and that they weren't ready to get married. Corinne's final message said she wished I'd fought harder. I did, I replied, quietly. For years, the seasons changed. I settled into a new rhythm, waking up early and enjoying the quiet. Respect, I realized, shows up after everything else falls away. Corinne visited one last time in November. She noted that I seemed different. I am, I said. I eventually bought a modest place of my own. I thought about Emily with sadness, but that wasn't my burden anymore. I took my dignity and my truth. When you push out the person holding everything together, you don't just lose the person, you lose the weight they carried in silence. If you feel unseen, remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose yourself. Thank you for listening. Remember, sometimes stepping back in silence is the most powerful answer. If Tom's story resonated with you, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Take care.